by Abhishek Jain and Navin Govindarasu. Abhishek is platform architect at Smarsh, where he builds secure cloud platforms for regulated industries and leads DevSecOps initiatives. Navin is a cloud security engineer specializing in AWS and Azure security governance. So they'll be presenting the next talk, breaking down security governance in AWS cloud. They'll be handling or dealing with different services from AWS. So yeah, I'm excited for the next talk as well. So yeah, all yours, Abhishek and Navin.
Everyone, good morning. Thank you for taking the time out on a Saturday morning. Thanks, JD. Where is JD? Okay. Thanks, JD, for the insightful talk. My name is Abhishek. I work as a platform architect at Smarsh. My role encompasses building secure cloud platform, cost optimized platforms within AWS specifically. With me, I have Naveen, who's the cybersecurity engineer at ThoughtWorks. Okay. Oops. Anyone remember this scene from a movie called Dhamal? Imagine this as your security platform, program, whatnot. This is an illusion of security. The door is like your policies that you're building. But then if the policies are not implemented, you don't have any walls, the attackers might come in, right? And you won't be able to do anything. So without complete governance, policies are just cosmetic. So you need to build real walls to protect your assets, which are hosted within cloud platforms. You need to close the side doors. So any alternative paths to your systems, privileged accesses, all those sort of things, you need to protect those entrants as well. And you don't just place doors, you define what is behind those doors, right? So if you go to a bank, there is a vault which has some more restrictions, some more protections versus your front offices, right? So you need to define what is there, right? Similarly, in terms of architecture, if you have data assets, databases, data stores, you protect them differently than you protect your DMZs or public facing networks or web applications, right? And last but not the least, you need to test your walls, not just your locks, right? So if you have a strong lock, but the door is weak, anyone can storm through that door, right? So with that, show of hands, how many of you manage more than 5 AWS accounts? Oh, wow, no one. Little more up so I can see. Only one person, okay? Do you manage more than 50? Anyone? No? Okay. So the next question is irrelevant. So, but you will come across organizations who have these kind of accounts. There are organizations who are managing more than 100 accounts, 500 accounts, and protecting those accounts, governing those accounts becomes challenging with that scale. And we are going to talk about that throughout this presentation. So quick agenda. We'll talk about the AWS shared responsibility model. So it is important for you to understand if you're adopting AWS to know what you need to do, what AWS does for you. We'll talk about why security governance is needed. We then move to when it goes to a scale, how do you handle it? What makes it challenging? What makes it too hard for you to manage? We then quickly look at the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework security perspective, which is a structured framework that you can use to assess your cloud journey. We'll then move to AWS Control Tower, see how that helps doing security governance at scale. We'll look at some more nuanced architecture with service control policies, account factory for Terraform, and then we'll talk about some more services that are present. Okay, so AWS shared responsibility model, and this is a security specific dimension. There are different dimensions of the shared responsibility model, but it actually talks about what AWS is responsible for and what you as a customer is responsible for security, right? So AWS provides security of the cloud infrastructures. So all the data centers, regions, hardwares, which is owned by AWS, even the hypervisors that are present, that is all what AWS protects for you. You don't need to worry about that. But when you build your applications and systems within the cloud, you're responsible for that, right? So your data assets, uh, your applications, your network, all those things is something that you're responsible for. So if you have data and you are not encrypting it, then it is not AWS's problem. It is your problem, right? Similarly, if you are setting up network and you don't have firewalls, it is your problem, not AWS's problem. AWS provide you with the services to do that, or you can go with some third party applications or providers to implement that, but it is your responsibility. And this is important for you to understand when you're building your security governance framework, that AWS is not responsible for everything. Why security governance is needed, right? Uh, so with expanding footprint in the cloud, imagine your company, there are different departments and they start using cloud. They start provisioning resources, applications within cloud, and suddenly there are a lot of things which are running in cloud. If you don't have a governance framework in place, if you don't have it automated, it will be hard for you to control the sprawl of those things. Then you have compliance requirements. If you are working in a regulated industry like PCI or HIPAA, you need to adhere to certain guidelines, certain controls that you need to put in place, which might be different across different compliance programs, right? And with the changes in the industry itself, these compliance keeps on updating their guardrails and controls that you need to put in place. So you need to keep up with those as well. And this is something you cannot do manually if you're managing more than 100 accounts or 1,000 accounts in AWS. Proactive breach prevention and data protection. So instead of reacting to the situation, it is always better to have preventive measures in place. Anyone here has been in a security incident or any data breach incident, right? Couple of them. So you must be knowing the pain after that, that you need to stop a lot of things that you're doing. You get into meetings, you get into forensic analysis, you deploy certain things to, fetch logs, send it to the forensic analyst and all those stuffs, which is not just a drain of your energy, your money, but it also costs you the reputation. The company loses reputation if you are into a security incident or a data breach, right? So it is always good to uh, prevent these kind of things from happening rather than regretting later. Consistency across environments. So you provision multiple environments. You have your non-production environments, then you have production environments. And sometimes what happen is you may put up some lenient controls within your non-production just to help your development teams to do things faster, right? And then you end up having more regulated or more secure environment in production and things start to fail, right? uh, and that can take a lot of time retrospectively to measure the effort that is gone into that, right? So you need to have consistent environment, and same is with the security, right? If you have security policies which are lenient within non-production, uh, and then stricter in production, it can take time for you to resolve those kind of issues. I've also seen you know systems where there is a connectivity between non-production and production, and since your non-production environments are lenient, it can compromise your production environments as well. More agility, right? So as teams start building in cloud, the traditional model where the IT infrastructure, the network, and all those sorts of things were put up by a centralized team, it was easier to manage the governance and security across that infrastructure, right? But when it moved towards the edge, when your developers and engineers have started provisioning infrastructure resources, it is very hard for you to govern that, right? So yeah, I mean, if you don't have an automated way of doing it, it's going to be very tough. And then your C-suite has their own set of expectations, right? So they want to know how the health of your security programs are, how many vulnerabilities you have, what kind of attacks you are prone to, and all those information is very difficult to get in a cloud-based ecosystem where you have distributed environments, and imagine if you're managing 100 instances of those such applications, right? Okay, so how do you implement, or what makes this more hard? So we talked about departments and teams spinning up their resources, and one of the AWS best practice says that you should host different type of AWS workloads or your workloads into different AWS accounts, right? So you start provisioning multiple AWS accounts. That leads you to a sprawl of AWS accounts, right? And then you have policies which are not enforced, they are not consistent, they are not automated. So if you're managing 2 or 5 AWS accounts, it's much more easier to put up certain guardrails manually, or you can replicate those setup manually. But when you're managing thousands or hundreds of accounts, it is hard to do that manually. So change management and drift detection again. So if you have good policies in place, uh, and then manual changes are there, it is hard to track, right? And we talked about inconsistent environments. So drift detection is going to be important. And then visibility on no security ownership across teams. So we looked at the AWS's shared responsibility model, which is clearly defines what you own and what AWS owns. You should also have something defined with your internal teams, that what is the corporate security team is responsible for, what is your cloud security team is responsible for, versus what your engineering teams are responsible for, right? And evolving threat landscape. So as JD mentioned, right, you have agents hallucinating and providing you with coupon codes, but now they are also going into databases and generating those coupon codes, right? So that is kind of an example of the evolving threats that are happening, right? And your security guardrails and controls should protect that. Okay, so we'll look at the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework security perspective. There are different perspectives within CAF. This is specially designed for security. So if you're adopting AWS, this is a good starting point where you can assess what you're building. You can identify what the gaps look like, and then you can iterate over it and implement a more controlled set of guardrails, right? So today we're going to focus mostly towards security governance. So we talked about having roles and responsibility defined within your teams. We talked about policies, but then how do you implement those policies within AWS, right? And then this security governance spans across multiple dimensions that you see on the slide deck. So threat detection, you have, so if you have running instances of your applications, how do you detect threat in this, right? So you deploy something like an endpoint security agent or an antivirus onto your systems, which helps you with threat detection, right? Data protection. So data is the new oil, as you might have heard, right? And you need to protect your data, right? To protect your data, you need to know what data you're storing. You need to classify that set of data. And once you classify your data, then you know what kind of guardrails you want to put in place, right? So if you are a part of a regulated industry like PCI and you're storing credit card information, you need to set up more stringent rules and guardrails, uh, which controls the unauthorized access to card data. It should not be leaked, right? Versus any public data like your images, website images, those are more of public data, right? So you have some different set of guardrails for that, right? So you need to know, how to protect your data. Security assurance really ties back with what we talked about, increasing threat landscape. So you need to continuously evaluate your security program, your guardrails, uh, which are implemented, and test the effectiveness of that, and improve on that. Vulnerability management, you might have come across your threat and vulnerability management programs running by your info security teams, which is nothing but identifying vulnerable packages, OS vulnerabilities, all those kind of stuff. Application security, that directly ties back with the security of your application. So you do pen testing on your application, you do dynamic security scans, do static security scans, you do container image scans. All those things would be part of your application security program, which is essentially your software development lifecycle, right? So within your SDLC flow, if you're running, CI/CD pipelines, you would have certain guardrails within that which protects you from putting in vulnerabilities into your production code. And then identity and access management. So you have a lot of identities. It is not just your username and passwords that you use to log in into the systems, but systems have their own set of identities, and they have a complex mechanism to communicate with each other, right? So uh, you can think of it as the authentication and authorizations that you put in place within your applications, which you need to manage as well. And then infrastructure protection is nothing but validating your systems and workloads and ensuring that they are protected. So it is more of a combination of your threat detection, vulnerability management, but also encompasses your network security aspects of it, right? So putting up firewalls, having security group rules within AWS, those things would lean into the infrastructure protection. And then incident response, right? So if you end up into an incident, unfortunately, you need to have a plan. How do you mitigate or come up with a resolution of those incidents? With that, I'm going to hand it over to Navin. He will talk about how do you implement these things with AWS services.
Uh, Hi, folks. Good morning. So, yeah, we spoke most about the things that we are going to do, like governance is important and all. So, the major point comes here is how we are going to implement it in AWS, right? So, that is the important thing. So, do you guys know what is Kirana Pro? Have you heard about that breach which happened very recently? Yeah, people didn't talk much about that, so that's why I thought of bringing it here. So it happened in the month of May, very recently. Um, didn't get media attention, by the way. Yeah. So what happened is, what they did is, some ex-employees' password they compromised or something, and that was their root password, AWS root password, and GitHub password, root password as well. So one day, the employees log in as usual. Imagine it's a Monday morning and they don't have their infrastructure at all. It's all deleted. The code base is deleted. Everything is gone. So yeah, that was the worst nightmare I can think of, when your entire infrastructure is wiped out or something, and then your console is like a brand new console which you have. So yeah, that's what happened. And yeah, what they didn't have is they didn't have a MFA. They were using root credentials, no RBAC, nothing. and CEO of the company just came and said that someone is trying to do something personal with them, but honestly, no one cares after the breach has happened. So yeah, anyone here knows about this service of AWS Control Tower or something? Or have you guys worked on it? In case you guys do. Okay, I'll just explain this AWS Control Towers. So what they do is, when I see most of the people said they manage less than 5 AWS accounts or something, right? But one point of your career, I believe that you guys will managing hundreds, 500s of AWS account. Hope so. So yeah, so that time, right? So the ultimate problem starts is how we are going to implement governance in all those 500 accounts or something. So yeah, so if it's one account or two account, you just jump and do manually stuff. That's what happens in most of the startups all. But in 500 accounts, you're not going to do it manually or something, right? So that's where this comes and helps us in the picture. So it is for managing governance at scale. So Control Tower is a cloud native service of AWS. It is uh, sort of it's within the AWS, comes with the AWS, your cloud cost and these things as well. So that is what it is. And to have AWS Control Towers, you need two more accounts. More than that, one is your log archive and audit and these things all. So yeah, so log archive, you guys collect logs and these things all, right? So that is a very important thing, because any incidents or something, the logs are very important, right? So what it does is, it does everything in a centralized way. Um, it collects all the logs from all your AWS account, puts in a different account. It makes sure that you can make sure that you restrict the access so that no one goes and tamper the logs and these things all. So yeah, this is how it's like, one or two accounts with your management accounts. That's how it manages. And one thing I like in this AWS Control Tower, right? I'll move it to this. Have you guys heard about service control policies? Have you guys worked on anything? Does your organization have it? Okay, I assume it's a no. So I consider this as the godfather of cloud security. So whenever I go on audits to some companies or something, right? So the first thing I do is I open the cloud console, I see what is their what are the SCPs, what are the restrictions and these things all which they have. So mostly when a company doesn't have those things, I understand that their security, maturity and everything is pretty low. So what it does is, it reduces the attack surface most of the times. It, what all controls you need to do, it implements those things. So yeah, so let's take one scenario, folks, over here. So yeah, let's suppose you're all US based company or something. No, let's not take US. They're a bit friendly. So we'll take Europe. So they have this GDPR and this stuff all. They are very stringent. So you want your data that it shouldn't go outside Europe or something. That's one GDPR thing which is there, right? So yeah, so you have this requirement that now how we are going to do it. So you're going to manually go to all your accounts and you're going to disable these regions or something. Yeah, that's definitely not possible. That's where control towers come into the picture. So you create account, whatever it is, you register it to the control towers. If I have time, I'll show you that as well. So once that is there, your all the policies and everything, right? Those come to your child accounts as well. This is the OU. This is the top level thing in AWS hierarchy, and then comes your control towers, accounts and these things, right? You go and register that OU to the control tower, and automatically all the policies and everything starts coming to this AWS account. So let's say that I put a policy that I'm going to not allow anything other than EU regions or something. So automatically all my accounts, any region other than EU, right? EU or something, it won't be there at all. So if you try to spin a VM in North Virginia or something, probably you won't be able to spin it. That's how you reduce the control. So you know now that all my workloads, everything are in these two regions. This is the two regions I need to uh, secure or whatever it is, right? So you also have an idea what is happening in your cloud and everything. An extension of this control tower is what we believe is you guys create AWS accounts and these things all. So yeah, so how much time it takes? It is easy to create account, but the security hardening and these things all takes hell lot of time, right? So that's when I'm saying that give a shot to Account Factory for Terraform. If you guys are using Terraform, I definitely believe you should use it, because nothing should be manual at the end of the day. You have to automate as much as you can. So, yep. So Account Tower, what it does is it's an extension of control towers, and more, if you have to say that the account creation is getting automated, then it automatically comes and registers to the control tower, and then automatically your policies and everything reflects to your child accounts and these things are. So that's how it is. And yeah, so this is how it works. I'm just taking it to it fast. And so it's like you raise an account request, sort of a pipeline, everything is there at AWS. You don't need to do anything from your side. It's already there, probably. So you just have to consume it like you consume all the other cloud services and these things, all right. So you raise account request and probably the pipeline gets triggered. It validates whether it has to check whether it's a new provision accounts or something. And then it starts provisioning the account with the OU you mentioned, whatever it is, because you have different OUs. Like if security team is there, there will be a security OU. If network, and then comes the accounts inside that OUs or something, right? So it's there. And what happens in after this process is the baseline governance from the control tower, right? That automatically comes when your account is getting created at all. And then you have your account level customizations or some. One is the global customization, that guardrails and everything which you talk about. And then account level, the decentralized controls and everything also comes into the picture, right? So that's how, at last, if you see, you got a hardened account or something in 5 to 10 minutes of your time. So yeah, these are other AWS security services. Which you should be aware of. It's like identity center and these things are. Governance is not one control tower will not fix your entire governance or something. It's like other things like identity center, guard duty, and these things all will help you build that governance model. So yeah, these are some services. Just make sure that you be aware and consume it. CloudTrail is a great service as well. AWS Security Hub. Just give it a shot whenever you guys are free. So yeah, with this I wind up. With interest of time, I couldn't show you guys the consoles and these things all. I just have 30 minutes or something we had. So yeah, I open the floor to you guys. If you guys have any questions or something, like what you guys want, you can come on and ask us. The floor is yours.
Hello. In the interest of time, like we can have one question, maybe if
Yeah.
anyone has any questions, and the rest we can take in the networking session. Like we'll have that as well at the end. Yeah.
I think so. No, everyone is good.